Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I don't really know if anybody expected it to be as bad as it's been.
Team quarantine. 21 Vancouver Canucks players and 4 staff now test positive for COVID-19. Also,
1 to 2 cases can lead to hundreds of cases, and now we see thousands of cases.
Should BC bring in a no travel order to curb the spread of COVID variants? And
the tide is turning towards the right direction.
a sigh of relief as more of BC's clinically vulnerable get vaccinated.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Well, like a highly efficient power play, COVID-19 is ravaging the Vancouver Canucks.
More players and staff have now tested positive, and as Susanna De Silva reports, the Canucks are revealing more about the source of the outbreak that's put the team on ice.
Another day, another positive test for the Vancouver Canucks. 1 week after the outbreak began, only 4 players on their active roster haven't caught COVID.
These guys are professional athletes, and this has knocked them on their asses.
Former Canuck goalie and current color commentator Corey Hirsch says he has spoken to some of the players.
I know there's some players that they're struggling, like they're hurting.
The total is now 21 players, including 3 from the taxi squad and 4 staff members. The team today confirming the cases involve a variant, though further testing is needed to determine which one, and that one person caught it in the community, despite league recommendations against going to public locations and daily testing.
Being a 20-year-old elite hockey player probably puts you in a category where your recovery is going to be reasonable, but there are the odd healthy person that has a very, very, aggressive response to these viruses.
The NHL says it is committed to playing out the rest of the season, even though the Canucks were unlikely to make the playoffs.
As time marches on, you wonder if those games need to be played, but there is a competitive balance to all of this, and the league does need to figure out standings.
And while the possible game scenarios are worked out, there is another impact already at play. In its statement, the team says their situation is a stark reminder of how quickly the virus can spread and its serious impact even among healthy young athletes. Team owner Francesco Aquilini echoed that on Twitter, saying if the COVID variant can knock down a whole team of healthy young athletes, everyone is high risk. Please read and follow the province-wide restrictions.
How do you turn it into something good, something positive, right? And maybe this will be the public that needs to see, like, hey, this is real.
As for when and which Canucks will take to the ice, that is still unclear. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is the question, what's next for the Canucks? Coming up later this hour, we'll hear from longtime hockey reporter Jeff Patterson from The Athletic Vancouver.
And it's another grim day in BC's fight against COVID-19, with the province announcing nearly 1,000 new cases. There are now 330 people in hospital. Of those, more than 100 are in intensive care. There is some good news. Almost 20% of those who are eligible for a shot have received at least their first dose. And people aged 70 or born in 1951 or earlier are now eligible to book their vaccine appointment. Nearly 950,000 doses of the vaccine have been administered.
And there are now 57 active cases in the Surrey School District. Some parents are calling for more safety measures, including more options for remote learning. The BC's Education Minister says it's important to keep kids in school.
We know that keeping kids connected to their schools, not only for the learning, but also for the social interaction, for the mental health supports, for the meal programs that they have access to, all of those other very important social supports that schools provide. We really want to do everything we can do to keep kids connected to those services.
The district introduced enhanced safety measures in mid-March. Almost 11,000 frontline education workers have already received their first dose of the vaccine. Health officials say there's no plan at the moment to suspend in-class learning in Surrey.
Well, tourism hotspots across the province are seeing people flock into their towns. That's despite warnings from government.
But as Joel Ballard reports, one issue may be that they're only warnings, and they clearly are not being followed by everyone.
These days, the streets of Whistler are quiet.
This whole community exists in relation to those mountains, and so when they close, really most things close in our community. So it's been devastating.
At the end of March, Whistler Mountain was ordered to close. The community had become a hotspot, both for travel and transmission.
Unnecessary travel and social gatherings are fueling the fire for the variants of concern transmission as well.
Yesterday, Dr. Bonnie Henry said the P1 variant from Brazil was introduced in BC both in Vancouver and Whistler. It then spread as people traveled. Today, there are 878 cases of the variant in BC, and some experts say that could have been avoided.
It's likely that restriction of travel will make a difference or would have made a difference. It's made a difference in many other countries around the world. It's made a difference in the Atlantic part of Canada.
BC hasn't banned travel, either regionally or provincially. It's only recommended against. But it's not too late, especially as we continue to learn of new variants around the world.
So we're learning more about the variants all the time. So restrictions going forward could reduce the number of these variants that could come to Canada and particularly to BC.
Over the long weekend, the small tourism town of Tofino saw a boost in tourists, not as busy as a normal Easter weekend, but an increase from the usual. Premier John Horgan, for his part, said it was outrageous people chose to travel to the island, but when it came to action, he threw up his hands.
Do we arrest them? What do? We urge them to go away.
Political opponents say there's plenty that can be done.
We are in a state of emergency. This government can make health orders about anything they want if they want to do that, and they are choosing not to.
If the province wants the public to follow the rules, First to Know says they need to make it a rule and not a recommendation.
Being very clear, this is an order. Do not travel out of your region unless it's for work or necessary, medical appointments. That's clear. But what we've had for a long time has not been clear.
But so far, the government has dug in its heels, instead focusing on vaccination. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
New findings tonight about how COVID affects the brain. They're from a study that says 1/3 of patients have lasting neurological or mental disorders.
Yes, the most common being anxiety and depression. Some patients shared their experiences with our Briar Stewart.
It's been over a year since Kathy Novak woke up in the ICU because of COVID-19.
I shouldn't have been at high risk, and I got it.
We spoke with her last spring and again today about her ongoing recovery.
I feel like both my brain and my body have aged 10 years.
She has trouble focusing and suffers from depression, and it's an all too common experience. A new study published in The Lancet examined the medical records of 230,000 COVID patients. Researchers found that 6 months on, 1/3 had a neurological or psychiatric diagnosis, the most common, anxiety and depression.
Fortunately, the neurologic diagnoses like stroke, brain hemorrhage and dementia, again, were much rarer, but they were certainly commoner after COVID than they were after the other illnesses we compared it to.
Like the flu and other respiratory illnesses.
Scientists say it's not exactly clear why more COVID patients suffered from a stroke or dementia, but say it's likely due to the fact that the virus can infiltrate the brain and the body's immune response to it can affect blood clotting.
A more common complaint from those who've had COVID is that some develop a brain fog, which can last for months. That's Susie Golding's experience, which is why she's been seeing an occupational therapist.
I feel myself like I'm an 87-year-old woman living a life with dementia, trying to get through my day as best as I can with these terrible memory lapses that are happening.
Golding says the government needs to do more to help those suffering from the lingering effects of COVID, and medical experts say it will be a challenge to meet the demand.
We don't have that many neurologists in Canada. We don't have that many psychiatrists in Canada. We're going to need a team effort to do this.
Because as the number of cases grow, it means more Canadians with COVID will be in need of follow-up care. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
It's been more than a year of heightened isolation, but now one Vancouver man says a weight has been lifted.
As someone with a rare form of leukemia, the 31-year-old has received his first COVID shot. But as Isabel Regem reports, there's still concern about the pandemic's long-term impact on blood cancer patients.
Something as simple as a walk in a busy park with the family now feels a bit more comfortable for Felix Chan, who lives with a rare type of blood cancer.
Yeah, it's a fairly rare condition called chronic myeloid leukemia.
This has had the entire family on high alert since the beginning of the pandemic.
They've certainly said that it would affect me more seriously than the average normal-bodied person.
Yeah, because he's in remission, but it's like a drug-induced remission, so the drug does suppress his immune system.
But now a new layer of protection after receiving a COVID vaccine.
2 weeks ago was a huge relief for sure.
Relief and celebration with a needle-shaped cake.
And why did Dad get a vaccination?
So he can stay healthy around everybody.
The cake also recognizes the efforts of 5-year-old Abigail, who had to be taken out of kindergarten to protect her dad.
Yeah, she goes with him. He gets regular blood tests, so sometimes she tags along. And I thought, this is a special needle, and so we should celebrate it. It's different, and I wanted her to recognize that.
But the fight isn't over. The BC chapter of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada worries the pandemic's impacts will be long-term for people with blood cancers.
Less people are being diagnosed right now because less people are going to hospitals. So what we are anticipating in the future is that there's going to be an increase in cases.
It's why he says everyone needs to continue monitoring for symptoms.
For instance, healing slowly from a bruise, excessive fatigue, swelling in glands, like those type of things, which can be commonly attributed to things like the cold or even symptoms like COVID.
The Chan family knows the dose doesn't mean an instant change. They'll keep going above and beyond to stay safe, but they're hopeful.
I think everyone's sense of perhaps discipline or perseverance can wane, and so even this little message of, hey, we can all do it.
Isabel Regam, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver police are on the hunt for a man in relation to the hateful graffiti done to the Chinese Cultural Center.
We want to reassure the community that our investigators are working diligently and tirelessly to hold people accountable for these types of hate crimes.
47-year-old Yves Castonguay has been charged with 1 count of public incitement of hatred and 1 count of mischief to property. Now, a BC-wide warrant has been issued for his arrest after failing to appear in court. The graffiti was discovered in April of last year. Someone wrote disturbing racist remarks toward the Asian community on the Chinese Cultural Center's 4 large glass windows. Anyone who sees Castonguay or knows of his whereabouts is asked to call police.
Police officers are stationed in schools around our province, but the fate of the liaison program in Vancouver schools is being debated tonight.
The program came under fire last summer when mass protests against police brutality and systemic discrimination were held across North America.
Eva Yuguen-Senge is outside the head office of the Vancouver School Board tonight. So, Eva, what's happening there this evening?
Well, Mike, tonight trustees are inside meeting to discuss the future of the Vancouver School Board's School Liaison Officer program, which, as you mentioned, has 17 Vancouver Police and RCMP officers stationed at elementary and high schools across the city. Earlier today, outside this building, students gathered to explain what makes them feel uncomfortable and unsafe about this program, especially those who are Black, Indigenous, and students of color.
Whenever I looked down and saw that officer's gun and badge, I felt discouraged. I was pushed back. I didn't feel comfortable being myself, asking questions, learning.
Now, having police officers at schools is common across BC school districts. The Vancouver Police says in a statement that much of what its liaison officers do is engage with the students and make the school a safe and inclusive space for them to learn. They say they certainly do investigations, but their focus is on public safety and student and staff engagement.
And Eva, what does the district have to say about the backlash against the program?
Well, the school board says it supports a safe and positive school environment, and it recognizes that the conversations about this program are very important and personal to a lot of people. In a statement, it said, trustees are very interested in hearing from VSB students, and in particular, the voices and perspectives of students with lived experiences with the program and of students who identify as being part of the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. The school board commissioned a report earlier this year to hear about students' different experiences, both positive and negative, with the program, but students say they haven't felt listened to.
If we need mental health support at our school, hire mental health professionals of color. If we need legal support, hire someone who can give a professional legal opinion. No one said that the person giving this help had to be a cop, so why do we still have them in our schools after almost 50 years?
The school board says tonight's meeting was an opportunity to hear from community members and stakeholders. A final decision on the future of the program is expected later this month.
All right, Eva Ugwensenj reporting live for us tonight. Thank you, Eva. Well, the province is promising funding to help add reliable cell service on the Highway of Tears.
By this fall, there will be continuous cellular coverage along the full length of the Highway of Tears, from Prince George to Prince Rupert. And this has been a long time coming. For so many, it's the only way to access essential services and to get to work and to school.
There are several areas along Highway 16 where cell service isn't currently available. Late next year, 12 cell towers will be added to close several gaps along the northern corridor. Officials say the upgrade will make the route safer, particularly for Indigenous women and girls. Dozens of women have been murdered or gone missing along the highway. Families of the missing women asked the government to improve cell service years ago.
The Conservation Officer Service is reminding people to beware of aggressive coyotes in Stanley Park. A woman was bitten by one there last night. It happened near Prospect Point Lighthouse at about 9 in the evening. Conservation officers responded, but they couldn't find the coyote. The woman suffered minor injuries to her calf. The service says the animals are more active at dawn and dusk, and people should consider avoiding the park around those times. 15 people have been bitten by coyotes in the park since December.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now. Less sun shining on you today, but I guess we're in that on again, off again stretch.
Yes, it's a bit obvious, isn't it, that we're out of the sunshine today. It was a full day of rain thanks to a cold front that slid down across the south coast. The cold front has actually passed through Metro Vancouver. I'll show you that in a moment. So we're starting to see some lightening of the skies through the evening hours, but showers lingering through tonight. Let me take you through the current temperatures. It was also a little chilly, just an 8 right now at YVR, and that cold front is bringing down some cooler temperatures. So we'll have to watch for that, especially on the island tonight. Temperatures will be getting close to the freezing mark, and we may see some gusty winds over the next couple of, a good 12 hours of gusty winds. I think I can take you through the next overnight. There we go. Taking you through the next 24 hours, and temperatures will actually stay quite mild across the south coast because of the cloud cover. I mean, milder than the freezing marks that we've got to at least. I'm just manually getting you to the satellite so I can show you that passing cold front, and we have almost got it. There we go. The cold front coming across the south coast, as I mentioned. It's tracking through the interior, so also bringing some snow down to about 1,400 meters to the interior and to the Kootenays through tomorrow morning. That's more snow for the two mountain ranges on top of an already above seasonal to record snowpack across the province. I'm actually waiting to see those latest snowpack numbers from BC. In the next couple of days, I'll keep you posted. Meanwhile, that high pressure you can see building off the coast, that is our story for tomorrow, Mike and Anita. So yes, right back to the sun. You won't even, today will be but a distant memory before we have to get back to another day like today before the end of the week. I'll time it all out coming up.
Good. I'm happy to make it a distant memory. Thanks, Joe. And we always like to remind you, you can also watch this newscast live on CBC Gem.
CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
A stunning reversal. Ontario goes from easing lockdown restrictions to ordering the whole province to stay home. The efforts to curb a surge in infections coming up.
And at 6:19, thanks for staying with us tonight during our commercial-free live stream. Well, a new Winnipeg bakery is selling sustainable treats from around the world.
But as Stephanie Cram reports, their ingredients are produced much closer to home.
From croissants to morning buns and cookies, Gâteau Bakery on Sargent Avenue offers classic French baking. But owner Laura Gerbu, who is from Mauritius, also wanted to include a taste of home, a banana tart.
It's a Mauritian classic, actually, that I made vegan. So it's a caramelized banana filling, and then we put it in like a pie crust. It's total classic.
Gerbu originally moved to Winnipeg to become a pharmacist, but that never happened.
I studied biochemistry, and something I really like, and I don't regret going to school at all, but I just realized that what I really loved to do was baking.
Even though Gerbu's recipes are international, her ingredients are local.
We also source locally or sustainably. So if you can't find it here, we try to, the closest to Winnipeg is the best. And then if not, then we'll try to go sustainable, fair trade, ethical, and all of that.
Gâteau originally started by selling at farmers markets in the city, which is where Gerbu met many of the local food producers she buys from.
It's just amazing because you know who made it and how it was made, and you know how long it took them to make it, and it's just so much passion. Like even in growing this carrot, someone will tell you how long it took to grow that, and that's just, I think it's just great.
For Gerbu, baking sustainably also means providing vegan options, which she says is one of the most sustainable diets out there.
It just lined up more with my vision of what I wanted in the bakery world and what I saw as being the future of baking. It's like veganism has taken, it's very popular, and not only it's popular, it just makes sense to me right now.
Gerbu says that there's often a stigma around vegan food, that it's not tasty, which she hopes to change.
I want to break that and have people enjoy it and not question whether it's vegan or not, and just be happy with eating it.
Whether it's classic French pastries or a Mauritian banana tart, at Gâteau, one thing's certain. What you're eating was baked with the environment in mind. Stephanie Cram, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Yeah. So do the vegan baking goods work for you or what?
Oh, yeah. Dairy-free vegan baked goods are pretty much all I eat. So I'm all about that sustainable baking life.
There you go. It's all about the sustainability. Very good. Okay, lots more to come in just a few moments. We've got COVID-19 news from across the country. You think restrictions are tough here? Wait till you see what they're doing in the province of Ontario. That and more coming next as you look at a live shot, Port of Vancouver at 6:22 tonight.
Well, it's a major reversal of rules in Ontario. The whole province is now facing stay-at-home orders, which come into effect tonight.
Katie Nicholson walks us through the province's plan to lock down and why some are saying these tighter restrictions are coming too late.
Some light pants for biking.
Last-minute purchases under the wire. Malls here just reopened last month, but even some shoppers agree.
They should not have opened, they should have waited.
Tonight, they close again for at least 4 weeks as a new emergency province-wide stay-at-home order takes effect.
Things are extremely serious right now.
Only grocery, drugstores, and garden centers can remain open. Big boxes are limited to selling groceries, cleaning, and pharmacy products. Ontarians are expected to stay home and limit contact with each other as the daily COVID count punches repeatedly above 3,000. This is the order so many experts wanted for so long.
There should have been action 6, 7, 8 weeks ago. So the fact that it's delayed this far is, in my mind, not only is it unnecessary, but it has resulted in illness and deaths that are unnecessary.
But the province is signaling it is listening. Today, a major pivot in its vaccination strategy.
Mobile teams are being organized to administer vaccines in high-risk congregate settings.
Those teams will head into hotspots and vaccinate anyone 18 and up. They'll also hit big factories and warehouses, the source of so many outbreaks. Teachers in 2 of the province's worst hit areas also eligible for shots next week. This teacher relieved but skeptical.
I have limited faith in our government's ability to roll out the plan until I see it.
Back at the mall, frustration with the stops and starts and the constantly changing messaging.
A lot of us are willing to abide by rules, but when the rules start to not make sense and have any logic, then that's hard to follow.
Katie Nicholson reporting from Toronto tonight. Well, Canada's Immunization Advisory Agency is standing by its decision to allow an extended delay in the delivery of second doses of vaccines.
The agency says it will allow more Canadians to be inoculated sooner. And as David Cochrane reports, Dr. Bonnie Henry and the country's medical officers agree.
Canada's vaccine supply is growing, but it's far from abundant. So the National Advisory Committee on Immunization says spacing doses up to 4 months apart is still the right approach.
Right now, the effort and energy is getting first dose in as many arms as quickly as possible to protect as many people as possible, especially given the ongoing transmission in a number of jurisdictions.
Ongoing transmission fueled by a surge in variants of concern, threatening to overwhelm hospital systems in Canada's largest provinces.
The more the virus transmits itself, the more it replicates, the more likely it is to create a variant of concern eventually. And so the goal here is really to give that protection to as many people as possible.
The idea is that the dosing intervals will shorten when vaccines are more plentiful and most, if not all, Canadians have had their first shot.
Our estimate is that eventually we will be able to go, close to 2.5 or 2 months interval between doses, but that really will depend on how many doses come in.
We are well positioned to have enough vaccines for everybody to have both doses by September.
The advisory committee says high-risk patients should get priority for that second dose during that second phase of vaccinations. But its advice to provinces is overwhelmingly to stay the course, to allow more people to be protected as soon as possible. David Cochrane, CBC News, Ottawa.
Ontario is also expanding the priority list for vaccinations to include some teachers.
Johanna Wagstaffe has more on what teachers want and what they can expect.
Ontario teachers will continue risking COVID-19 in the classroom, but at least now some will have protection.
Starting in Toronto and Peel for all education staff, focused in on those high priority areas for staff that live or that work within those communities will now have access to the vaccine starting April break.
Quebec is following a similar strategy. Montreal teachers can register for a shot starting Friday.
I'm ecstatic to hear that the teachers are finally being considered as essential workers. That should have been the case a while ago.
What awaits them on the other side is cautious optimism. In British Columbia, this teacher got vaccinated about 2 weeks ago because her public health unit put teachers on the priority list.
I remember lining up for the shot, on that Sunday, and all of us, smiling ear to ear behind our masks, of course, and very much relief, not complete. We understand we can still transmit, we can still carry. It's not this foolproof solution.
In Ontario, teacher unions would like to see the vaccines available to all the teachers working in regions with high case counts, not only those in select neighborhoods.
Schools should be closed to in-person learning until educators have all been vaccinated and until there's been a period of time for the vaccine to take effect, which is about 3 weeks.
No promise of that, but today the Ontario Minister of Education said that following Toronto and Peel, vaccines will be rolled out to teachers in other hotspot cities like Ottawa and Hamilton. Again, only those working in the most affected neighborhoods. Teachers working with special needs children can also get their shot. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
A 16-year-old in Montreal is now the youngest victim to die from COVID-19 in that province. Public health officials say young people who die from COVID generally have other serious health problems. The only other teenager to die from COVID in Quebec was a 19-year-old last summer. He was otherwise in good health. A boy younger than 10 died in Winnipeg in November.
The drug regulator for the European Union says it has found a possible link between the AstraZeneca vaccine and a rare blood clotting disorder. But as Tessa Arcia reports tonight, the agency still insists the vaccine is safe and has not changed age restrictions for its use.
The European Medicines Agency released their much-anticipated findings today on the potential link between the AstraZeneca vaccine and reported rare blood clots.
The reported cases of unusual blood clotting following vaccination with the AstraZeneca vaccine should be listed as possible side effects of the vaccine. The benefits of the AstraZeneca vaccine in preventing COVID-19 overall outweigh the risks of side effects.
Its investigation came after reported deaths among recipients of the shot related to blood clots in the brain accompanied by a low platelet count. They reiterated that the number of cases remain extremely low, 169 cases out of 34 million doses in the EU and the UK. Most of the cases affected young and middle-aged women, but the EMA says that it can't yet confirm risk factors, including ones based on age and gender. The UK medicines regulator also released its verdict today.
Adults who are aged 18 to 29 years old who do not have an underlying health condition that puts them at higher risk from serious COVID-19 disease should be offered an alternative COVID-19 vaccine in preference to the AstraZeneca vaccine.
This is, of course, another blow to a vaccine that's already faced a lot of speed bumps. A UK trial of the vaccine in children aged 6 to 17 was halted today as a precautionary measure while waiting for those findings. In a letter seen by Reuters, European health ministers have been told that new regulatory guidance for the shot will have an immediate impact on vaccination plans. Germany, for example, which has suspended its use for the under 60s, is also the first European country to recommend a few days ago that people under 60 who have had a first AstraZeneca shot should receive a different product for their second shot. The European regulators said that they will continue to review the evidence, be transparent about their findings, and give timely recommendations. Tessa Arcia, CBC News, London.
One of the hardest hit sectors during the pandemic has been the hospitality industry.
And as restaurants struggle to survive closures, Austin Grabish reports illegal home kitchens are cooking up more competition.
It's quiet on this day at Jaffa Cafe. The dining room is empty, and owner Rana Abdullah says sales are down. She says she knows where some of her customers are now getting meals from.
But they tell us, why should we order from here? We can order it from home, from those home kitchens. And they give us a cheaper price.
Abdullah says home kitchens are taking a big bite out of her bottom line. She and other restaurant owners are asking Winnipeg's mayor and Manitoba's top doctor for a crackdown.
Cooking food at home as part of a side business might seem harmless, but it's actually against the law with some exceptions. And now a new team of health inspectors is in charge of investigating illegal food sellers.
A quick search on Facebook shows the variety of food for sale. The province says it sent dozens of letters warning sellers what they're doing is illegal, and says 6 who kept selling were fined.
If a person who wants to take food from you, he is satisfied, so I don't think so that there's something problematic in it.
Shumaila Osman sells Pakistani and Indian food. She says she cooks 2 to 3 times a week, helping to fill a demand for halal food, and disagrees she's competing with restaurants.
It's my hobby, it's my entertainment, you can say. I feel very fresh when I cook food.
Back at the Jaffa Cafe, Abdullah is hoping a crackdown comes soon.
You want to be equitable with everybody else. If I'm paying taxes, they have to pay taxes. You don't pay taxes. If I welcome self-inspectors, they have to welcome self-inspectors.
She wants inspectors to step up enforcement and hopes they will put an end to home-based sellers taking a bite out of restaurants' bottom line. Austin Grabish, CBC News, Winnipeg.
COVID-19 has taken the team off the ice. So what does the future hold for the Vancouver Canucks? And should the team perhaps be doing more and be more upfront about the fight its players are facing? The Athletic's Jeff Patterson joins us coming up.
For those of you who hate to be out of earshot of your television set, and we love you, Rick Forchuk has just the gadget for you, so listen.
I've always been a real TV buff, maybe even a TV buffoon. And I'm just delighted that modern technology has finally caught up with my video longings. Take a look at this little beauty. This is a Watchman, and it's one of the smallest television sets made. This lets me keep tabs with what's on TV while I'm in the car. I don't recommend that anybody actually watch TV while driving. There are laws against that. Now this little beauty lets me turn off the picture and then tune into the sound with this little earpiece, and I'm free to drive away. And I'll tell you, it's more than just a gadget. This allows me to point out what's really good on television, and it points out what's really bad on television too. How? I'm glad you asked that. I'm driving around in the daytime. I can listen to the daytime soap operas and never really miss a beat. And when I'm in the car at night, I can tune into Dallas, to Dynasty, to Knots Landing, and know exactly what's going on. And that's because these shows really rely heavily on good dialogue and strong storylines to get their point across. The pictures enhance the value, but they really aren't necessary. And the bad programming? Well, trying to figure out what's happening with Knight Rider, with the A-Team, or with Hardcastle and McCormick is just about impossible, because all you hear is the rattle of small arms fire, the squealing of tires, and the roaring of engines. And there's more to technology than just this little doll. There's the new video cassette machines, there's the new stereo TVs, and a beauty just out by the Japanese that actually allows you to watch 9 separate channels all on the same screen, all at the same time. But that one won't fit in the car, so I'm going to pass on it for now. I'll tell you what the real problem is, though, with television in the car. It's not the traffic, and it's really not the bad programming, and it's not the distractions. It's having to drive through the traffic with all those miles of cable behind you. For Midday, I'm Rick Forchuk in Vancouver.
Pardon me, boys. This is not the Chattanooga Choo-Choo. It's the Royal Hudson from British Columbia, a 1940s steam-powered locomotive, the largest in regular passenger service in North America. Its claim to fame is the fact that one of the Hudson series pulled the royal family across Canada. Today, it's pulling a 17-car train with 5 cars dedicated to the history and promotion of BC. George Hannon is 76 years old, and he still loves driving that big iron horse. Judy Savoy for CBC News.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Restrictions going forward could reduce the number of these variants that could come to Canada and particularly to BC.
Should no travel guidelines be no travel orders in BC? With COVID cases surging, tourism towns continue to see travelers from outside their communities. Some are suggesting a ban would help reduce the spread of the virus.
As of today, people aged 70, born in 1951 or earlier, are now eligible to book in for a COVID-19 vaccine. You can do so online or by calling. Almost 20% of those who are eligible for a shot have now gotten one here in BC.
This is not something to be played around with. This is professional athletes that are getting knocked on their butts.
The Vancouver Canucks confirm a variant of COVID-19 virus is responsible for the outbreak that has ravaged the team. A total of 25 players and staff have now tested positive. The Canucks say the source is a single individual obtained in a community setting. It has since been identified by public health as a public exposure location.
And joining us now is longtime Canucks reporter from the Athletic Vancouver, Jeff Patterson. Jeff, thanks for doing this tonight. As we've heard, 21 players, 4 staff now testing positive. The team confirming a variant is responsible for this outbreak. What's your sense? Did anyone in the organization think it would be this bad?
Well, thanks for having me on, Mike. You know, I've spent a fair bit of this day thinking back. It's been one full week now. It was last Wednesday around this time the Canucks were supposed to play the Calgary Flames, and we always hear that phrase, the abundance of caution. It's a good thing that the league decided not to go forward with that game. Can you imagine if the Canucks, knowing what we know about their story over the last 7 days, if they had faced the Flames and those two teams and got head-to-head and butted heads and collided, and you talk about close contact out on the ice. So the league got that part right. But when you think of where we were a week ago to now, I don't think anybody saw it getting to this stage. And I think everybody was hoping that we would get through a day here where no players were added to that National Hockey League COVID list. And the total continues to grow, and we're not at a point yet where we can say that the Canucks are anywhere close to out of the woods.
Yeah, and Jeff, as you know, the hockey culture tends to be very guarded, especially on health issues. Have you heard anything from the players about how they're doing?
We've heard very little, not from the players themselves, and I don't know if there's any sort of gag order on them from the team or the league, but we have heard anecdotally from family members, close, people closest to these players that, you look at a guy like Brandon Sutter, who is a father. He's a father of 2, and his wife is pregnant, and apparently he's quarantining in his basement while his wife, with 2 toddlers upstairs and is pregnant, is left to deal with the kids. And so, we think of these guys as hockey players, and obviously they are. And for most people, that's all they are. But there is this human element, obviously, and it is safety first and foremost, and you want the health for these guys.
Okay, time for a couple of quick questions. Games postponed, as you've mentioned. The team has played 37 of 56 regular season games. Can they realistically finish the season?
Seems hard to think that that's possible now, Mike. They've got 4 games left against Ottawa. Those games will not matter at all to the playoff structure, so you wonder if they have to play those games. They've got 4 left with Calgary. The Flames have an outside chance at the playoffs, but still a long shot. And so ultimately, as time marches on, you wonder if those games need to be played. But there is a competitive balance to all of this, and the league does need to figure out standings for things like the draft order. So I think the Canucks will play again, but the idea of them completing a 56-game season seems hard for me to believe at this stage.
All right, and considering all they've been through, I mean, do you think the team be using their platform, their high profile, to maybe help inform people about what this virus is capable of in our community?
Yeah, and I look forward to hearing in time from players, but right now, again, they're not around the rink at all, so there are no media availabilities. They're trying to convalesce at this stage, but I did think it was important finally to hear from the organization. So, I thought we got a pretty thorough update from the Vancouver Canucks, and yes, I believe that there is a role for this high-profile organization to play, just to warn the greater community at large about the dangers of this virus and this variant.
All right, we shall see what happens going forward. Jeff, we appreciate your time tonight. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Growing backlash against the state of Georgia and its sweeping new rules to restrict voting rights in the states. But as corporations publicly challenge the rules, they face a backlash of their own.
At 6:42, a live look, BC Place Stadium, downtown Vancouver tonight. In our one day on, one day off weather pattern, this was an off day for certain, but we're back on tomorrow. Johanna has the good news next.
Nanaimo, BC, a 90-minute ferry ride from Vancouver, is home to a thriving, tight-knit community of hobby beekeepers. In August 2019, John Duff, a member of Nanaimo's beekeeping club, made a historic and terrifying discovery in his own backyard, something that would threaten not only the honeybees on the island, but human life as well.
I just finished working in the garden. I was sitting down relaxing, watching the hives, having a beer. There's a bunch of wasps around, so I was swatting some of the wasps. And then I just noticed this very large insect land. And so I got up, and then it jumped on one of my bees. I had my fly swat, so I swatted it. It fell into the ground, and the bee flew away. And as it fell, I was just like, wow, that is huge. That's like, you know, the top of my pinky. It's the size of a dragonfly, but it's not a dragonfly. And it's brave enough to go up against 30,000 bees. And I realized that this was something different.
Honeybees are some of the smallest livestock humans work with, and arguably the most essential. They pollinate 80% of the world's plants, which feed animals and humans. So without them, our food supply, economy, and environment would be in serious trouble. Each year, the list of threats to honeybees grows, from pesticides to the varroa mites to the Earth's increasing temperature. And now, the Asian giant hornet, a highly invasive species that would soon join the daily horrors in the news after a few sightings were reported in Washington state.
As if we needed more to worry about than the threat of the deadly disease that has gripped the world, now there is more fodder for people's nightmares.
It can be up to 5 times larger than a honeybee. 60,000 honeybees torn apart in a savage attack.
They rip their heads off and take the thorax for food.
Its venom can be deadly. Get as far away from it as you can.
They reportedly kill up to 50 people each year. Well, it's been dubbed the murder hornet.
The murder hornet.
The murder hornet. Murder hornet.
Murder hornet.
Murder hornets.
The state of Georgia's new voting law is being met with more opposition, including lawsuits, protests, even criticism from President Joe Biden.
Donald Trump's false claims of voter fraud led to the new rules. But as Ellen Morrow tells us, many charge they will disenfranchise black voters.
Why are you arresting her?
Georgia lawmaker Park Cannon handcuffed after repeatedly knocking on the governor's door. Behind it, Brian Kemp signing the state's new voting law under a painting of a plantation. This moment now a symbol of a fierce fight.
This is all too familiar.
Cannon says the law targets voters of color.
When you look at this bill, you see the tears of African Americans. You see a community that has been steadfast in protecting their right to vote being taken away.
The law includes new, strict voter ID rules for absentee ballots. State officials may have more power over local elections, and there will be fewer ballot drop boxes than there were in 2020.
This is Jim Crow 2.0.
But what it definitely isn't is Jim Crow 2.0.
Republican official Gabriel Sterling garnered praise during the 2020 election for denouncing false claims of voter fraud pushed by Donald Trump.
It has all gone too far.
He says criticism of the new law is political, arguing voters won't be disenfranchised. But Sterling admits the new law was spurred by the same mistruths he denounced.
Isn't that fundamentally a problem if what they're responding to is a falsehood?
They believe this because a person they respect told them this was the truth. Even though we have evidence showing the other, you can't just dismiss it. You can't just say, well, you're being silly.
The law has been condemned by dozens of corporate giants and from the White House.
It's sick. It's sick.
Dozens of Republican-run states are planning similar legislation. Cannon says the fight is just beginning.
The right to vote is sacred and protected, and we will do everything to keep that just as it is.
Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
Okay, I think it's fair to say we've known for a while that our Johanna Wagstaffe is an out-of-this-world meteorologist, but actually now she's taking our weather to another planet.
Yes,
it's true.
Oh, no, go ahead. It's all about you, Johanna, with this.
I mean, how could I not respond to, the out-of-the-world comment? Yeah, it's true. I'm just going to take you right to the surface of Mars. Check out the forecast I've got going. It is minus 20 degrees Celsius on the surface. Within 30 minutes, that temperature dropped to a chilly minus 26 degrees Celsius. I won't go into the fact that it's a dry cold or that conditions were clear at the time. And I should mention, Mike and Anita, this report is actually from February 19th. I usually like to be a little more timely with my weather reports, but the reason why I'm giving you the weather from the Jezero crater on the surface of Mars is that it was just released from NASA. This is the first weather report from the Perseverance rover, and you can see scientists here checking out the both helicopter and the rover back on Earth before it was sent February 18th to the surface. Scientists have taken this long to analyze and make sure all of the sensors on board were in working order. And there is a spectacular array of weather instruments. We have everything from the instruments that I use to create the forecast, temperature, pressure, wind, but we also have radiation from the sun and from the planet itself, and dust monitoring. And this is the third data point we have. Mars's Curiosity and Insight rover also giving weather reports on a daily basis. So with 3 data points, we can come up with a weather forecast. So I will keep you posted as we head into Martian weather. I might have to have a separate segment on that coming up. But for now, I'll take you back to the Earth front. Not quite dropping our temperatures 6 degrees in 30 minutes, but that is what has just moved through Metro Vancouver. High pressure building for tomorrow, but then this low pressure system gathering strength in the Aleutian Panhandle. That will be our story for Friday. So very much still 1 day of sun, 1 day of rain, and then back to the sunshine. Let me take you through the timing of that front. Getting a mix of showers through the overnight, but then clearing out quite nicely. Look at that. Thursday morning, lots of sunshine, maybe some lingering cumulus through the valley. It's more of a mix of sun and cloud, but a gorgeous Thursday. Temperatures will still be a little on the cool side, but I can keep it dry and sunny right through the next 24 hours. As that front tracks eastward, we'll see some more snow, as I mentioned, through the Kootenays. High pressure is our story for tomorrow. Things are moving fast, though, in the upper atmosphere. The next system will roll through for Friday, but it is also fast moving. So just a 1 day hit of rain for the south coast and more snow for the mountains before we get back to the weekend. Lots of sun across the province tomorrow behind that cold front. Cranbrook is just taking a little longer to clear. And notice Prince Rupert up towards Dease Lake. You're getting the precip with the next system to move in. But after that, it's high pressure for most of the province. So we've got a 10 tomorrow with that sunshine. A cooler 8 for Friday with that next storm system sliding down the coast. And then look at that, building high pressure through the weekend into Monday, getting into the mid-teens. And Mike and Anita, I think we can keep this going through most of next week. High teen temperatures, not out of the question. So get prepared.
I don't know, Johanna. I think you should take it back. Mike wants it so badly. I don't think we should give it to him.
Successful campaign. It's working again this upcoming weekend. It's fine.
Okay, we'll see how that goes. Maybe you can petition Mars weather next.
Yes, well, balmy here compared to your minus 26 on
Exactly.
All right, Joe, thanks very much. Okay, add this to puzzles, sourdough, and Tiger King. Could this be the next big COVID fad? We'll search for the answer coming up.
The last time any Formula One cars spun around Circuit Gilles Villeneuve was back in June 2019. 2020's race was derailed by COVID-19. Refunds were supposed to be issued by the fall, but some ticket holders are still waiting.
It just leaves a sour taste in your mouth.
Aniket Huda is owed about $2,900 for tickets he bought from the F1 ticket store, an authorized reseller.
Every month, we just get an update saying that still no money, no idea when it's going to happen.
The company claims the holdup is with the race's Montreal promoters, the Octane Racing Group. Until Octane reimburses them, the reseller says it can't issue refunds. Believing Octane ultimately has his money, Huda decided to sue in small claims court. Octane responded, saying the reimbursement must be made through his ticket supplier. It agreed it is their responsibility to reimburse the F1 ticket store, but couldn't give Huda a timeline. Given no race happened, Huda doesn't understand where the money went.
This is a multi-million-dollar organization.
Since CBC first reported on the delay last December, we've received messages from several dozen people across North America who have yet to get their refund. Some, like Huda, bought from a reseller, others from the race organizers directly. But not everyone is surprised by the delays. Many sports organizations rely on ticket sales to sustain their operations and expenses.
You're basically borrowing money from the fans at an interest-free rate, right?
Tickets for this year's Montreal race haven't gone on sale yet, but Lander says the promoter and ticket resellers are likely counting on that revenue to pay back remaining fans.
It's just kind of like this sense that you're being taken advantage of.
Huda is still waiting for a court date. A spokesperson for the Octane Racing Group declined CBC's request for comment. Leah Hendry, CBC News, Montreal.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell. Here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Join CBC Vancouver's Gloria Makarenko at the 2021 Because Mothers Matter Awards on May 5th. Celebrate the resilience of mothers during the global pandemic at this year's awards. And the Doxa Documentary Film Festival is May 6th to 16th. Enjoy thoughtful and engaging documentaries, panel discussions, and more, all from the comfort of your own home. Learn more at doxafestival.ca.
Well, there's baking sourdough, gardening, 1,000-piece puzzles. Did you do all of those things?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The pandemic has led to a surge in all sorts of hobbies.
Is Netflix a hobby?
I think in your case, yes.
Sure. Well, now, a modern-day version of treasure hunting is catching on. Marjorie Dowhouse explains.
Today is a beautiful spring day, and Jordan McPeak is getting ready for a day of hunting in the great outdoors. McPeak isn't new to geocaching. In fact, he's been doing it since 2008 and has collected nearly 4,500 hiding places to his name.
I went on what we call a streak of I found one a day for about 3.5 years.
McPeak's streak not only took him around Manitoba. Pre-pandemic, he managed to keep that streak going when he was visiting other cities.
I hop off the plane and get to the get to the hotel and run out and grab one before midnight so I could say I got one that day.
Geocaching involves using a GPS device to find hidden little packages or caches hidden by other geocachers. The packages can be hidden anywhere, like in a park or under a stone, to even being found in plain sight, like in a mall parking lot. It's been around for years, but it's only now during the pandemic that it's starting to attract some new fans.
As time's gone on, the evolution of smartphones has definitely made it more accessible.
Nathan Catcher is the president of the Manitoba Geocachers Association. He says geocaching is a great pandemic activity because it's done outside. You can do it alone or with family. It's for the young and old, and it doesn't require a lot of equipment. McPeak, with his pen and tweezers in hand, says he enjoys the variety geocaching gives him.
Something that gets you outside, gets you active. For someone like me, it helps in providing some motivation for getting out.
Marjorie Dowhouse, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Okay, so there's an association and all this, and apparently there's no cash actually involved in geocaching. At least I don't think, unless somebody put cash there, I guess.
This is going to replace your Netflix hobby.
There you go. We'll get on
Good.
it. Just a reminder, you can always watch our newscasts online, cbc.ca/BC.
Dan Bird is here at 11 right after the National. Good night.
Good night.